All right, are you guys seeing my screen?
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. Um, so first question, just for everybody here, has anyone used story maps before, or even just like seen a story map before? Thumbs up, thumbs down. No, couple thumbs up, couple thumbs down. Okay, perfect. We're gonna start at the beginning. So story maps are an interactive multimedia storytelling tool. The basic idea is it takes all these different ways of storytelling and it smushes them into one so that you can kind of choose how you want to lay out a story. It's run by Esri, which is who makes ArcGIS, which is probably like the biggest, one of the bigger mapping companies in the world. And so they do mapping software. But story maps are designed to be um, easily digestible, easy to work with, ways to communicate information without having to do a bunch of complex mapping or a bunch of complex, like just all of the other things. So the whole idea behind them is that they're very user friendly with the idea that anybody can make them and then anybody can share them. Um, and so um, if this is something that you're interested in doing with your students, and you probably don't know until you look around a little bit, one of the first things that I would do is have them just look at some story maps to see what they are. Um, so to get there, you do need an account. All you have to do is go storymaps.arcgis.com, um, and it'll ask you to log in. It's a free account. As a quick aside, if you are already using GIS, using ArcGIS with the school or with the tribe, both have educational licenses. So you can get more accounts that have more power if you do think you want to do more GIS or more mapping with your students in the future. You can get that through the school district or through the tribe. Um, but if all you want to use it for is story maps, the easiest thing is to just go to storymaps.arcgis.com and just make an account. It's a free login. Um, and then I would take my students and I would just have them go poke around. There's a thing called gallery you can get to, and it's just gonna show you a smattering of a bunch of different examples of what they are. So this is what it looks like today. It looks different every day. And what's really cool is there's one up here that actually has some IARC affiliated folks on it. So I pulled that one up just to show you an example. This has Brookwoods, who works with IARC and is an expert on fish. Um, and so when I say multimedia tool, it means you can combine narrative text. So you have your story that you're telling, but you can also use video, images. You can put hyperlinks in. You can make maps. You can do slideshows. You can do timelines, infographics, all sorts of different stuff, and you can put it all together. One of the big perks, I think, with this and working with students is that it gives students the opportunity to really play to their strengths. So if you've got some students that are like, hey, I've been out interviewing elders and I want to put these audio recordings on here, and that's really like my piece of the project that I want to include, awesome, they can do that. If you've got another student that's like, I love writing, I want to write the story, another student's like, I really like making graphs, I'm going to do the graphs. This way you can combine it all, and it's a lot more visually appealing than your standard research report. No offense to the standard research report, but it is a lot more appealing. Um, and so, and then just the other thing is, there's this guide for the science symposium coming up, and it's fantastic. And I would definitely just recommend using that. But that is not the only venue for story maps. So you can also have, students have taken story maps to the tribal council before or to school board to show an issue that's important, or they've done it just as a presentation, in class. So there's lots of uses for it. It's just another tool in your toolkit for how to tell stories with your students. Um, so I always run the risk of driving too fast when I am driving something that scrolls. So forgive me if you get dizzy, tell me to slow down. I just want to show you an example of what one looks like. They all start with the title and give you some sort of opportunity to put an image or a video or a map up at the top. Um, it also always includes the author, so whoever's name is on the account is automatically going to get populated in there. So just something to think about if you want each student to have their own account or if you want to have a class account. Um, but as we scroll down, you can see there's some text that somebody's typed up. You've got some pictures of what's going on. Um, and then my guess is this map is in here as a graphic itself. You can make maps. You can also input graphics if you already have an image. There's lots of opportunities for subheaders. You can put in figures, graphs, data. You can make quotes pop out so that you can see them better. Helps draw people's eyes into like if there's something that really matters or a personal connection that somebody wants to share. Um, and then let me just scroll real quick for a second. Okay, so this is another tool. As you can see, the text moves along the side as it highlights features on the map. So that's another tool in the StoryMap kit. You can see that again here. And I'm going to show you all of these like on how to put one together. I just want you to see some examples of what they look like. So um, I think this is mostly photos and text as you go down as well. And then if you scroll all the way to the bottom, sorry for the dizziness here, you have the opportunity to put in all your credits. So you make sure that everybody who's involved is getting credit for it, even if it's just one student's name at the top. So if you make your own account, what it's going to do is it's going to take you to, well, once you're done looking at the project gallery and getting some good ideas, it'll take you to just this landing page. Everybody has their own landing page. It looks like this. If you've played around and dinked around a lot, you're going to have a bunch of untitled stories, which is what I have. But also it's where my stories that are not untitled stories are. So, this was a presentation that we gave to a funding agency. These are lesson plans that we've done with students before. This is something we shared out of the Globe Science Symposium. So lots of different things you can do with a story map. If you're following along the story map quick start guide that Christy referenced that Tori put in the chat, it's going to say go up here and it's going to say start from scratch. They changed the language. They are always updating, so it's a little bit different, which is funny because I just checked it today. I was like, I should just make sure it's still the same, and it's a little bit different. But still, you're going to go up, if you want to start a story map, you're going to go up to create, and you're just going to click story. For the sakes of this, ignore all the other stuff. If you really want to dig into it and you want to get creative and your students get really excited, you can go play around, but just go to create and story. It'll launch this story builder. And what I like about story maps is that it does a lot of the background work for you. You don't need to know any coding. You don't need to know any website design. You don't even really need to know anything about like what makes graphics look good because they're going to, for the most part, just do it for you. So what you end up with is this blank story map. And right away, it's going to start out with the title. So you're going to put your title. You can give a little something or other underneath it. It will always say draft until you hit publish. So nobody can see this while you are working on it until you click publish and you decide how to share it and with who. So anytime on here you see a place that says this is going to give you the option to add a cover image, you can change that. And then anytime you see this little, I guess that's kind of like a little teal plus symbol is where you can add things. So if I were to put my title in there, anything here, I can change where I want this to be. But anytime you see this little plus, if you add it, this gives you the option of what you want to put in there. So you have lots of options. The first being just text. So if I want to add text and I want to type something, Science Symposium Project, it's going to go here. And then there's options for how to change it. You can make it a heading, a numbered list. You can play around a little bit with the font and bolding and things like that. I can turn it into a quote and attribute it to somebody if I want to. So everything has, stuff you can do once you add it. So that's text. That's probably the most basic idea. The other thing is no matter what you've got, the plus adds something. This little 6 dots here helps you reorder it so you can move stuff around. So once you've got it on there, you can pull it up and pull it down or reorganize it wherever you want in your story map. I want to show you just some of the other things that you can add to a story map. A button is a hyperlink. So if you want somebody to look at your report or your story map and then go visit another website, it's going to pop up with a little button. And if you add in there, you can add a link and it can take you to another site. And then if I wanted that up top, I would just drag it. A separator is just, another cue for a different section. And then code, if you have somebody in your class that's really into coding and you want to put some code in there, and you can share some scripts, you can do that. That is not me. I don't know that stuff, but I think it's cool. Okay. Now, when you get to the more data visualization stuff, you have options of maps, charts, infographics, or tables. This all also updated recently. It used to have a little bit differently how they introduced the map. It'd be like express map, tour map. They've simplified it a little bit, which is a little bit nice. So if I were to click map here, there's a couple different things you can do. If you are part of ArcGIS and you already have some maps that you've made, it's going to give you those maps underneath here. But in general, if you're just doing story maps, you're not necessarily going to have maps that you've made separately in ArcGIS. You're going to have these options here of creating an express map or looking for other maps. So, like for example, my organization is the University of Alaska, and so I can see anybody that shared a map within the University of Alaska. I can see their maps and use that. There's also Living Atlas of the World, which is Esri verified maps. And so the reason I suggest if you are looking for a map that's already made that shows something, looking here is because it's been validated. You can trust it as a source. Your students can trust it as a source because before it makes it into Living Atlas, it's been reviewed by Esri and they know that the data is solid. And so you can get all sorts of different maps in there that you can use. So you can see things like that. Roofing permits. There's a map for that. So you can always have your students search and then they can bring in a map that somebody else has made it into their project. If your students want to make their own map, an express map to show especially like where their sample sites are or where erosion's happening or where a wildfire scar is, then you can go up here to create express map. And it's going to launch you into this, which is just your basic map of the world. You have lots of options over here where you can change the base map. So you can change it to a satellite image if that works better for you. And then let's say you want to zoom into where you are. So if we go over to Toke, it's going to zoom in here. And then it's going to give me the option to add that to a map. But let's say I don't want to. Let's say I want to go down here and find my specific sites. You can just zoom in here. And then you've got some options here. You can up here add a point. You can add a numbered point. You can draw. You can make shapes. So if I would say right here is the spot that, we tested something, we went out, we took data. And over here, I want to trace this little open area here, because maybe this is something important here. So you can add features like this and kind of draw. You can add text, so this is, site A might be here. You can change how it says things. So you have a lot of options to simply make a map with the background imagery that's already provided, and then you can add different stops along it. You can add a legend, an overview map, and then it's going to give you your features here. So anything else you've included on there. And then once you've got it, you can save it and it's going to pop up in here. Now, if you were to add a bunch of points, let me quick show you what that looks like. So this is one we did from Science Symposium 2023. It's been 3 years already. So this is a quick express map that just showed where the students came from. And it was really simple, but it gives you the opportunity to have some information and a picture along the side. And then the story map itself will zoom you through all the different locations. So it'll zoom in to wherever you have set it to zoom into. And so you can add multiple pictures. These were all our teams from Fairbanks. But as you scroll down, you'll see it's gonna, look at that. There's Tori. It's gonna fly us around and highlight the other places. So I think once we get down here, down to Washington, it'll fly us down here. So that's a way to do an interactive map that you can have the students, they used to call it a map tour because it kind of drives you get to set where people go and how, right? When they're looking at it. So it's not just showing them a static map and then they have to decide how to interpret that. Instead, when somebody looks at it, you're guiding them through it and you're leading them through it. So that's something that your students can include. And especially if you've got multiple sites you're working with, that can be really cool. let's see here. Okay, so let's go back to, oops, our draft here. Okay, so let's say we added a map. A couple other things I want to show you that you can add. Charts. You can add different graphs. This is relatively new, I think. Last time I made one, they didn't have one, but you can copy paste your data. So if you've got an Excel spreadsheet, you can copy paste. I looked, and I don't know, Tori or Hannah, if you guys have used these more, if there's a way to upload a spreadsheet. Um, I haven't seen that yet, or upload a graph. If you have a graph that's already made, you can upload it as an image, though. That's always an option. And let's see. Infographic, which is going to just like highlight something. Again, it lets you kind of just add something simple in there and it'll give you an infographic. A table, same kind of thing as the graph. It's going to drop it in there for you and you can fill it in. If you've already got it made in Excel or you've already got it made in Google Sheets, you can always just bring it in as an image as well. All right, media. Image is pretty standard. You can pull it from the web. You can pull it from your desktop, wherever you've got them. You can also do an image gallery, which is a bunch of them. So for example, on this guy, sorry, I don't want to make people dizzy. I think this one we had an image gallery. Yeah. So you can have a bunch of photos at once. So again, it's just another way to split it up so when people are reading it or they're going through it, it switches up how it looks to keep people engaged. So that's another way to do it. Also, if you just have a bunch of cool photos of students doing stuff and you can't pick, well, there's your easy out for how to deal with that. A 360 image, you have to upload it yourself. I've never taken one, but that's a cool new feature. Okay, image gallery, video. Again, your students are going to know how to make videos and they're going to be able to do it. So that one's uploads pretty easily. Same with audio. This embed thing, you can embed other websites. I do think if you don't have, like I tried to log in under my personal Gmail, which is not affiliated with the university, and I don't have this highlighted under my personal email. So I don't think you have the opportunity to embed other apps unless you are part of an organization, but I could be wrong. But don't be surprised if this one isn't highlighted. Um, an ArcGIS app, um, could be useful if there's the Wildfire one. I wonder if because that is an ArcGIS map. So you can go through here. These are apps that are made on ArcGIS by other people. And so you could bring one of these in. I don't know if Hillary knows if you can find the Wildfire dashboard. That's a potential as well. Perhaps you could bring that in if that's relevant to your project. So anyway, okay, let's go back here. Oh, I keep doing that.
I think Hillary, if you wanted to talk, you need to unmute.
Oh, I just said I'm not certain actually if you can. I would imagine that you should be able to because they're pretty linked in with Esri. I could reach out to a couple of people and find out.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks. Okay, a couple other fun features that they have is this swipe tool. This one's, I think, a really powerful storytelling tool. The trick is you have to have location data on it, and it has to be really accurate, else it won't work. But what this is it gives you the opportunity to compare the same place at different times. So let me zoom up here and find one to show you. Okay, so this is the same place, but you get to have this little swipe tool that goes back and forth. The easiest way to do one of these is to take maps that are already made that are available just from going and clicking those. You can do this with images like the classic, the glacier before and after, and you can do it with a wildfire before or after. But in that case, your photos have to be geo-referenced, meaning they have to have location data. For the most part, our phones are automatically doing that unless you've turned it off. But if you've got like a historical photo, that's not going to come in with that. And so you can do it, but it's some legwork to get that to actually match up. But there's lots of imagery out there that you can use that's already available and already knows where it is. So you don't have to go find it in space. But that's a cool tool to use as well. Other tools available to you. are a timeline, so you can show the timeline of your project or your progress. The sidecar is that immersive panel where the panel moves while the map kind of highlights the features. So um, that's what these folks did up here. So this is a sidecar. So the text moves alongside as the image changes. Sorry, let me get that going. Um, that's what a sidecar is. That's a pretty powerful storytelling tool as well. Um, and then, oh, they do have map tour as a separate one here. Okay, so you can also do a map tour where you start and build it up that way. Express map is also pretty easy to do it. So that is like a really quickly going through all of the things. That said, the reason that I go through it quickly is because I want you to know what stuff are or what stuff is, and that it's a really cool tool and there's a lot you can do with it. But also more than anything I have worked with, Esri has put a lot of effort into making really user-friendly guides for how to do things and making this user-friendly. So there's the guide that Christy shared, which I have pulled up here. This is a really nice thing because not only does it show you how to build the story map, but it's also going to build in how to develop a story map that tells your research project. So, as you scroll down here, it's not just, okay, how do we want to build a story map, but okay, what sections do we need? What kind of things might we put in there? So maybe the introduction section, if you know you're going to be having to explain why the research is important, maybe that's an opportunity for your 3 students who really want to do a video to share a video. In your data analysis and discussion or in your method plans, maybe that's where somebody shares some audio or some pictures of you guys out there collecting the data. So it's also, this guide is going to give you not just how to do the story map, but also how to organize it really well for telling your research project or a proposal. So definitely use this as a source. Um, there's a couple other things. Good. I'm glad that I just looked at this. Couple other things that you can do up here is this button here says design. This is going to give you an option to just kind of change from like a light to dark or to have things on the side. So your students can play around with this. Navigation is a different way to do this. Let me show you one that has navigation at the top. I don't think this one does. Okay, let me just go. Navigation is I don't know if you can hear my squealing baby in the back. So navigation gives you headers at the top for each of your sections so that you can jump to them, or you can scroll to them. So you can have that kind of a setup as well. Just different options to work with. And then the other thing you can do with design is you can change this theme. So you can't just go in and be like, my favorite font is Calibri and that's the one I want to work with. But they do have different themes where they've already put a color palette in and then they've put different fonts to go with it. So your students can choose which one they feel like would work best for their particular project. There are other themes in a gallery. You can make your own. Again, that's a little bit like, if we're on JV, that's varsity. So if your students get really into it and they want to do that in the future, awesome. But I would stick with making your story map first before you get too in the weeds with that. And then, let's see. There's you can swap things around here. Preview allows you to look at it how it would look to somebody else. So if somebody else is looking at this is what they're going to see. They're not going to see all my, messy work, but that's what they're going to see. So the preview button is your friend for sure. And on the preview button, sorry, I should have showed you that. This also lets you see how it looks on a mobile device, a tablet, a desktop, and then full screen. So it gives you some options too. And then one thing that's newer, I think, is that it also allows you to check accessibility. So once you have it where you want it and you're like, sweet, this looks good, let's do it. It's always auto saving. It's always in draft mode until you click publish. And you can share it. Private is just with yourself. So if you want to share it with anybody and you want it to be on private, you're gonna have to log in to show them. Um, Organization, if you are affiliated through your school district with ArcGIS, that would be your organization. Or everyone means it's public, anyone can view it. Um, I wish there was a way to do it like, with Google, where they've got like only people who have the link, but that's not really an option here. So again, being mindful of what you put on there, if it's going to be everyone can view it, which I think it would have to be in order to share it with the Globe Science Symposium. Just be mindful of like, what you've put up there if there's anything that you've got concerns with, because anybody can theoretically look at it. Is somebody going to go searching the internet for it? Probably not, but like it could be viewed by anybody, outside of the Student Research Symposium or the Virtual Science Symposium. And then there is a way to where was it? I was going to do insights. Oh, now I can't find. There was a thing earlier that was an accessibility checker, which I really like. Yeah, here we go. Accessibility checker. So this is going to tell you if there's issues that are, um, maybe you want to put some captions in here. You need to add, attribute this to somebody. Accessibility might be if you're using like a color scheme that's not viewable by everyone or something like that. So, or your fonts are too small or something like that. Um, so that's also an option. So that is kind of the like quick crash course. I know I talk really fast and I showed you a bunch of stuff, but the idea behind it being show you what's out there, and then there's all these great tools to go through it on your own. So I've sent Tori's got some links. Um, yeah, awesome. Thank you, Tori. Tori's putting some links in the chat itself. Um, there's the Globe Quick Start Guide. There's also this think it's this one that's the getting started with, um, which is really nice. It's really user-friendly tutorials. And the other thing I like about them is they made the tutorials in StoryMap form. So you can see, like this is a story map about how to make story maps. Okay, cool. That gives me some ideas. And I know that I can bold things. I know that I can, put in images because I'm seeing them do it here. So lots of great stuff to work with. They're also just, I think, pretty fun. So hopefully, if your students decide to do this, or you want to try to do this with your students, they have a lot of fun. It gives them a lot of freedom to play around and really play to their strengths. Um, so yeah. And if you decide to do it and you have any questions at any time, you're always welcome to reach out to me. Or I know Christy's made a bunch of story maps. So I'm sure other folks here have too. So um, yeah, I think that that's all I've got. And Tori has been wonderful in adding great links into the chat that if you want to explore more, you can do that.
Thank you so much, Emily. That was really informative. I learned a lot. Does anybody have questions for Emily? I did have one, and I think you kind of answered it there at the end. Like, what is the difference between the free account and an organization account? And you mentioned one that like a few options might be grayed out.
Yeah, and we ran into this at a workshop a few years ago where they used to have just the ArcGIS was one kind of story map and the public account was another kind of story map. And luckily they've merged them together now, so it's a little bit more straightforward. The main difference in the ArcGIS, if you have an organizational account versus if you don't, so a paid for account versus a free account, is your map making capabilities. So what I can do through the organization is I have an ArcGIS account, which means I can make really detailed maps and I can run analytics. That's the big difference is I can analyze my maps that I've made, and then I can bring in those maps to the story maps themselves. If you've got the free public account, you can't really do anything analytical on your map. You can't, compare this area to this area and the size and do all of those kind of numbers questions. So you can really only use the maps to tell stories. You can't necessarily use the maps to analyze data. I feel like I need to find a better way to explain that because I'm not sure that that totally makes sense.
No, I think it does. So if they
Yeah.
have an analysis they want to do, that's where they could reach out to you or to Hannah, and then they could put that in as an image.
Yeah. So for
Okay.
example, if I wanted to run like if I wanted to make a map in ArcGIS and I wanted to know something about the proximity to all these different water bodies from the school, for example. That's a thing that in an ArcGIS map, I can just enter, these locations and then I can run a proximity analysis and it's going to give me those distances. And I don't have to go measure anything. It's just going to run it for me. Um, but yeah, and if you're using StoryMaps, you can't do that part. But if somebody's made that map, you can bring in that map, as if somebody's published that online. So yeah, if you do have a map if you do have some like data analysis you want to do with a map or with satellite imagery, definitely that's where I can help out. Hannah, Christy, some of the map whizzes can help out. So it's more power beyond, what they give you there.
And who would they contact to find out if they have an organizational license for it? Their tech person?
Yeah, it's going to be through the school districts. I would email the school district's tech person.
Okay.
And for the sakes of a story map, it doesn't necessarily make that much difference. But if you do have high school students that get really interested in mapping, like a few years ago, we had a team from Juneau that had some students that were really interested in mapping, and they were more interested in doing that kind of data analysis. And so in that case, it does benefit everybody to actually have the organizational account on there. And then also then if your students are leaving and they leave in high school and they're graduating, they've got some of those map making skills behind them. That is a very employable skill. Um, but to just do the story maps, you don't really need to go through that whole rigmarole.
And I wanted to point out too that even though that the virtual science symposium ends early this year, if you wanted to build in your lesson, in your unit plans for the spring, that students make a story map, that can still be published to Globe anytime. Yeah. So it can still be accepted in, May or late April. And then that's what's many students in the past have actually used that link either to the story map or to the globe link that could have the embedded story map within it. They've used that on job applications. They've used it to try to apply for college and scholarships. So having, maybe you look at their story map and you're like, they're not ready yet. That's okay. They can still edit it. And then if you wanted to publish on the Globe website, that's a NASA program, and that can really help students on their college scholarship.
And because it's in the Globe database, they can say they're scientifically published, correct?
Yes, they can say it's published. And it is reviewed. Like we have, after I'm done, there's still a team. The Globe website is staying. The Globe data collection is staying. There's a team that those things stay, but they are reviewed. So there may be a time that they, after the school year where they say no longer until we get more funding, accepting new projects. And that's just because NASA has to vet everything. It's a NASA website. They host it. So they have to curate the content and make sure that it's okay. Whereas story maps, that's up to you as a teacher. Like anyone can go get a login and just make a story map, and then they would have the link. But to publish on the Globe website, that does require that additional review.
Wonderful. We have just